in case you didn't see it, so several months ago, a big scandal broke out about President Biden having classified documents in his Delaware office, in his UPenn office, in his home, in several different places across the country, from when he was vice president to when he was senator. Several different decades of his life. He had 40 years worth of classified documents just hanging out in his home, which is interesting. So the Justice instructed Robert Hur, a attorney, to be a special counsel working on this case. And yesterday, the findings came out. In a over 200-page document, Robert Hur laid out his findings and specifically spoke as to why he is not planning on indicting Biden and putting a conviction out there. And his reasoning is very, very interesting. I do want to read one quote that I found very striking from this interview, or from this report. According to the report, quote, "We have also considered that, at trial, Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview of him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. Based on our direct interactions with and observations of him, he is someone for whom many jurors will want to identify reasonable doubt. It would be difficult to convince a jury that they should convict him, by then a former president well into his 80s, of a serious felony that requires a mental state of willfulness." Now, I do want to highlight quick, a former president well into his 80s, we have a former president very close to his 80s who is being prosecuted right now and put in front of a jury, but they don't seem to care about that. But the main takeaway here is that Robert Hur is basically describing Biden as too mentally incompetent to stand trial. And my question is, if he's too mentally incompetent to stand trial, how is he mentally competent enough to still be president? That's a question a lot of people are asking. Well, Biden tried to prove his mental competence last night in a press conference. And it was a very interesting press conference at that. And I do want to very quickly play that press conference and react to it live. Because I'm just going to be honest, when I was watching it last night, I could not believe what I was seeing. So I do want to take a look at this and react to it live here with you all. Let's begin.
Findings today about their look into my handling of classified documents. I was pleased to see he reached a firm conclusion that no charges should be brought against me in this case. This was an exhaustive investigation going back more than 40 years, even into the 1970s when I was still a new United States Senator. The special counsel acknowledged I cooperated completely. I did not throw up any roadblocks. I sought no delays. In fact, I was so determined to give the special counsel what he needed, I went forward with a 5-hour in-person interview over 2 days on October the 8th and 9th of last year, even though Israel had just been attacked by Hamas on the 7th and I was very occupied. It was in the middle of handling an international crisis. I was especially pleased to see special counsel make clear the stark distinction and difference between this case and Mr. Trump's case. The special counsel wrote, and I quote, "Several material distinctions between Mr. Trump's case and Mr. Biden's are clear," continuing to quote, "Most notably, after given multiple chances to return classified documents to avoid prosecution, Mr. Trump allegedly did the opposite. According to the indictment, he not only refused to return the documents for many months, he also obstructed justice by enlisting others to destroy evidence and then to lie about it. In contrast," we went on to say, "Mr. Biden turned in classified documents to the National Archives and the Department of Justice, consented to the search of multiple locations, including his home, sat for a voluntary interview, and in other ways cooperated with the investigation," end of quote. I've seen the headlines since the report was released about my willful retention of documents. These assertions are not only misleading, they're just plain wrong. On page 215, if you had a chance, I know it's a thick document. On page 215 of the report of the special counsel found the exact opposite. Here's what he wrote. There is, in fact, a shortage of evidence that I willfully retained classified materials related to Afghanistan.
Now, as you can see, he seems put together so far, but that's mainly because he's reading off a teleprompter. This far into it seems like he's in a decent state of mind and that he's not going too far off the deep end. But as you'll see here in a second, things get really bad really fast.
Page 12, the special counsel also wrote for another documents. The decision to decline criminal charges was straightforward. The evidence suggests that Mr. Biden did not willfully retain these documents. The evidence said I did not willfully retain these documents. In addition, I know there's some attention paid to some language in the report about my recollection of events.
This is where it starts.
There's even reference that I don't remember when my son died. How in the hell dare he raise that? Frankly, when I was asked the question, I thought to myself, it wasn't any of their damn business. Let me tell you something. Some of you have commented, I wear since the day he died, every single day, the rosary he got from Our Lady of... Every Memorial Day we hold a service remembering him, attended by friends and family and the people who loved him. I don't need anyone. I don't need anyone to remind me when he passed away.
Now, I have seen some people pointing out this specific clip and claiming that this is part of the evidence of his mental decline, and you can obviously tell that there is something going on behind the scenes. However, I do want to be fair to him. I do think that a lot of what you're seeing right here specifically is because he is emotional about the fact that his son died. A good father would be. I don't blame him for being emotional for that. And you can kind of hear him, the sadness in his voice when he's talking about it. But I do think that this is the catalyst for what kicks off what's about to happen. Because he's about to go from sad to very angry very, very quickly. And as soon as he gets mad, that's when things start to turn.
Simple truth is I sat for a 5-hour interview over 2 days of events going back 40 years. At the same time I was managing an international crisis, their task was to make a decision about whether to move forward with charges in this case. That's their decision to make. That's the counsel's decision to make. That's his job. And they decided not to move forward. For any extraneous commentary, they don't know what they're talking about. It has no place in this report. The bottom line is the matter is now closed. I'm going to continue what I've always focused on, my job of being President of the United States of America. Now, thank you, and I'll take some questions.
President Biden, something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president, and I put this country back on its feet. I don't need his recommendation. It's
How
totally
bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad I let you speak. That's
My memory is so bad, I let you speak. That's a new one for me. I'm not gonna lie. If that was supposed to be some sort of roast or burn, it fell flat. It fell pretty flat, I'm not gonna lie. My memory is so bad, I let you speak. I don't even know what he's actually trying to go for with that quote, if I'm being honest. It's very... Let's just continue.
that's
Do you
that's
feel
my
your memory has gotten worse, Mr.
No,
President?
my memory is not good. My memory is fine. My
No, it's
memory.
not.
Take a look at what I've done since I become president. None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen? You know, I guess I just forgot what was going on.
Mr. President.
To be fair to Biden, not gotten much passed. That's not being fair, but not much has gotten passed. He got a bipartisan infrastructure bill, which really didn't do much. I don't even remember if that actually passed or not. There have not been many at all achievements of Biden's presidency, if we're being completely honest here. They've had some messaging wins with some bills that have gone through the House or gone through the Senate, but didn't get passed in the other chamber. But largely, Biden hasn't really, he hasn't really had any victories. I don't know what he's talking about here. He hasn't gotten much legislation passed. He hasn't gotten much done as president. Everything he's done has either been messaging or an administrative agency just doing what administrative agencies do. Biden himself has been part of very little of what's gone on in the past few years. I mean, obviously, all presidents are going to take credit for things that they haven't done, but with Biden, it's especially egregious that he has gotten nothing done, and yet he's still claiming that he's gotten stuff passed. Let's continue.
Voters have concerns about your age. How are you going to assuage them? And do you fear that this report is only going to fuel further concerns about your age?
Only by some of you.
Mr. President, for criminal liability today, would you take responsibility for at least being careless with classified material?
I take responsibility for not having seen exactly what my staff was doing. It goes in and points out things that appeared in my garage, things that came out of my home, things that were moved not by me but my staff.
That is very interesting that he pivots now to blaming his staff for the documents being left behind. Now, if it was 1 or 2 boxes, I could kind of buy this. If he had like 1 box or 2 boxes just kind of stored away and he didn't know that they were there and his staff members accidentally put them there, I could buy that. But the issue here is that he has multiple boxes of hundreds of documents sitting beside a Corvette in his garage. I mean, that's not bad staff work. That's you being incompetent. Or worse, that's you being intentionally dishonest and storing these things in your home when you know that you're not supposed to have them. You know that you're not supposed to have these documents with you at your house. You know that these are things that are supposed to be classified. You know you shouldn't have these things. And yet you have of hundreds of documents sitting in your home, and you're going to blame your staff for it. That's absurd. That's just absolutely absurd, and I don't think that anybody actually buys that for a minute. There is no possible way that anybody can actually look at objective facts of what's going on and say, oh yeah, he just left. It was his staff. It's their fault, of course. No. That's incredibly insane. That's so incredibly dishonest.
Mr. President, for months when you were asked about your age, you would respond with the words, "Watch me." Many American people have been watching, and they have expressed concerns about your age.
That is your judgment. That is your judgment.
Look at how it's shocking that when he gets pressed on something like this, that he just gets angry. It's interesting.
It's not the judgment of the press.
They express concerns about your mental acuity. They say.
He also said that is your judgment. That's not the judgment of the press. But she is the press, is she not? Someone correct me if I'm wrong here, but she is the press, right?
That you were too old. Mr. President, in December, you told me that you believe there are many other Democrats who could defeat Donald Trump. So why does it have to be you now? What is your answer to that question?
Because I'm the most qualified person in this country to be President of the United States and finish the job I started.
He claims to be the most qualified person in the United States to be president. I strongly dislike Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell is more qualified to be president than Joe Biden is. Tucker Carlson is more qualified to be president than Joe Biden is. Donald Trump is definitely more qualified to be president than Joe Biden is. Ron DeSantis, more qualified. Vivek Ramaswamy, more qualified. Josh Hawley, more qualified. Dan Bishop, more qualified. Senator Dusty Deavers of Oklahoma is more qualified than any of them, in my opinion, to be president. My roommate, sitting here playing video games while I'm live right now, is more qualified to be president than Joe Biden. How he can sit there and say that those of you that are watching are probably more qualified to be president than Joe Biden. How he could say that he is the most qualified person in America to be president is absolutely asinine and absurd to me. I do not understand how he could say that with a straight face. It makes no sense. Speaking of which, if you are watching, drop a hi in the chat. I want to see who's watching here. I want to see who's. I'm going to start reacting to some of you guys' chats here in a few minutes. So if you want to drop a comment or drop a how or something in the chat down below, please do, because I do want to see who is watching. But that's not the point. The point is, Joe Biden is not the most qualified person in America to be president. I don't know how he could say that with a straight face. Let's continue.
Why are you confusing the names of world leaders?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
I did not share classified information.
I do want to, before he, I'm going to run it back just a little bit. In case you didn't hear it, and you might hear it here in a second, someone asked him, why are you confusing the names of world leaders? He'll claim that he doesn't do that. Later on in this very same press conference, he confuses the name of a world leader. It's very funny that this question was asked when it was, but we'll continue.
Could defeat Donald Trump. So why does it have to be you now? What is your answer to that question?
Because I'm the most qualified person in this country to be president of the United States and finish the job I started.
Do you believe that? Why are you confusing the names of world leaders?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
I did not share classified information. I did not share it.
With your ghostwriter.
With my ghostwriter, I did not. Guarantee you did not.
But the special counsel said in the
no,
report
he
that he
did not say that.
Okay.
He did not say that.
But Mr. President, one of the...
Let me answer your question. The fact of the matter is, what I didn't want repeated, I didn't want him to know, and I didn't read it to him, was I had written a long memorandum to President Obama why we should not be in Afghanistan. And I was multiple pages. And so what I was referring to, I said classified. I should have said should be private, because it was a contact between the president and the vice president as to what was going on. That's what it is referring to. It was not classified information in that document. That was not classified.
You can hear them trying to end this because they know that this is a horrible look for Biden. And as this goes forward, it does get worse. And I'm going to play the rest of it. But as this goes forward, it does get a lot worse. And the question in my mind is, as I watch, why are they letting him go up there and make a fool of himself like this? Like, what is their thought process throughout all of this? Because it doesn't make sense. I believe they could be setting him up to very soon placed, whether it be by Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, Michelle Obama, somebody. If I were his staff member, I would have ended this minutes ago, but I probably wouldn't have even let him go out there, honestly. But
when you look back at this incident, is there anything you would do differently now? And do you think that a special prosecutor should have been appointed in the first place in both of these cases?
First of all, what I would have done is oversee the transfer of the material that was in my office, in my offices. I should have done that. If I go back, I didn't have the responsibility to that. That was my staff was supposed to do that, and they referenced that in the report. And my staff did not do it in the way that, for example, I didn't know how half the boxes got in my garage until I found out staff gathered them up, put them together, and took them to the garage in my home. And all the stuff that was in my home was in filing cabinets that were either locked or able to be locked. It was in my house. It wasn't out in, like in Mar-a-Lago, in a public place where, and none of it was high classified. Didn't have any of that red stuff on it. You know what I mean, around the corners? None of that. And so I wish I had paid more attention to how the documents were being moved and where. I thought they were being moved to the archives. I thought all of it was being moved. That's what I thought. Now, what was the last part of your question?
Whether a special counsel should have been appointed in this case and in the case of your rival president, former president.
I think a special counsel should have been appointed. And the reason I think a special counsel should have been appointed is because I did not want to be in a position that they looked at Trump and weren't going to look at me.
The main reason he probably wanted a special counsel appointed is because he knew that no matter what, the special counsel would have ruled that he did not need indicted, which it kind of backfired for him, honestly, because if you look at the report, just the things that were said in that report, absolutely crazy, very damning for President Biden. But he thought he could get away with a softball. He kind of, but man.
Just like they looked at the vice president. And the fact is they made a firm conclusion. I did not break the law. Period. Thank you all very, very much.
You see now, he's trying to wonder. You'll see us through.
The hostage negotiation, look.
All right, and here's a question about Israel, and now he's coming back to the podium, which is a very big mistake.
I'm of the view,
Watch what happens
as you
next.
know, that the conduct of the response in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip, has been over the top. I think that, as you know, initially the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in.
The president of Mexico apparently now shares a border with Gaza. In case you weren't sure who he's talking about, he was referencing the president of Egypt. Because Israel refused to let a humanitarian aid go through because they thought that would be used just for the terrorists and not for any actual hostages. And Egypt refused to let humanitarian aid go through for their own reasons. But for some reason, Biden thinks that the president of Egypt is the president of Mexico. Last time I checked, Mexico was not in the Middle East. I'm not a geography whiz at all, but last time I checked, Mexico is not in the middle of the Middle East. It does not share a border with Gaza. I could be wrong. I could be mistaken. Somebody can fact check me live if they want. But I am very, very, very sure Mexico is not next to Gaza. It's not in the Middle East. It's not part of this.
I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate. I talked to Bibi to open the gate on the Israeli side. I've been pushing really hard to get humanitarian assistance into Gaza. There are a lot of innocent people who are starving, a lot of innocent people who are in trouble and dying, and it's got to stop, number one. Number two, I was also in a position that I'm the guy that made the case that we have to do much more to increase the amount of material going in, including fuel, including other items. I've been on the phone with the Qataris, I've been on the phone with the Egyptians, I've been on the phone with the Saudis to get as much aid as we possibly can into Gaza. There are innocent people, innocent women and children who are also in badly in need of help. And so that's what we're pushing. And I'm pushing very hard now to deal with this hostage ceasefire because, as a, you know, I've been working tirelessly in this deal. How can I say this without revealing it? To lead to a sustained pause in the fighting, in the actions taking place in the Gaza Strip. And because I think if we could get the delay for that, the initial delay, I think that we would be able to extend that so that we could increase the prospect that this fighting in Gaza changes. There's also negotiations. You may recall, in the very beginning, right before Hamas attacked, I was in contact with the Saudis and others to work out a deal where they would recognize Israel's right to exist, make them part of the Middle East, and recognize them fully in return for certain things that the United States would commit to do. And the commitment that we were proposing to do related to two items. I'm not going to go in detail, but one of them was to deal with the protection against their arch enemy to the northwest, northeast, I should say. The second one, by providing ammunition and material for them to defend themselves. Coincidentally, that's the time frame when this broke out. I have no proof what I'm about to say, but it's not unreasonable to suspect that the Hamas understood what was about to take place and wanted to break it up before it happened.
Thank you, everybody. We're going to need everybody to hold for a moment.
He's gone. So that's the absolute shenanigan fest that was Biden's press conference yesterday, and I don't even know who thought that was a good idea to let him go out there and do that. That was something else. Very, very, very damaging for the President of the United States. Something very, just overall, just a bad press conference full of half-truths, mistruths, and a lot of confusion, especially with Biden. I don't know how much longer this man's going to be president. At this rate, he's going to lose the election. At this rate, he very well could have the 25th Amendment invoked on him. I don't know how likely that actually will take place to occur. Something's going to happen to this man. He's not going to... Even if he stays in the race somehow and he wins somehow, Joe Biden will not be president in 2025. He will die in office. He will be kicked out of office by his cabinet, or he'll announce that he's resigning or deciding not to continue his run for re-election. One of those things is bound to happen. I don't know how longer he can stay in this position like this. It's insane. I just don't understand how anyone on his team thought it was a good idea for him to go out there and make a fool of himself like that and trying to set him up for failure. That's the only thing that makes sense in my mind, is that they're specifically trying to put him in a situation to make him look like a fool, more than he already does, so that they can justify getting rid of him. That's the only thing that makes sense about this. They put him out there like that if it wasn't for the fact that they're just trying to justify getting rid of him. I don't understand it. If somebody gets it, please let me know. I don't get it. I just don't get it.